this is some pretty big news if you think about it, because for the longest time, this was like the ultimate taboo in political circles, like elite political circles. So now we have a whole bunch of Congress people signed a letter calling for the release of Julian Assange. So I believe it was Rashida Tlaib who led the charge on this.
Yep.
She tweeted, 4 years ago today, Julian Assange was arrested for publishing the truth. I'm leading a letter to Attorney General Garland, urging him to uphold the freedom of the press by dropping these Trump-era charges and withdrawing the extradition request. And I'm taking a look here. So we have Rashida Tlaib, Cori Bush, Greg Cesar, Jamal Bowman, and AOC. They signed it. If I'm not mistaken, I think maybe more have hopped on after the fact. I'm not 100% sure on that, but we have at least some people in Congress actually doing the right thing on this front and leading the charge. Just to read you a little bit of the letter. So it's to the Honorable Merrick Garland, Dear Attorney General Merrick Garland, we write you to... Hold on, let me make this a little bit bigger because I'm apparently 97 years old and I can't read.
Your eyes are anyway.
Yeah, really. No kidding. My eyes are like 400 years old. This didn't help, by the way. We write you today. This is how we're going to do it, guys.
To read it for
we write you today to call on you to uphold the First Amendment's protections for the freedom of the press by dropping the criminal charges against Australian publisher Julian Assange and withdrawing the American extradition request currently pending with the British government. Press freedom, civil liberty, and human rights groups have been emphatic that the charges against Mr. Assange pose a grave and unprecedented threat to everybody, constitutionally protected journalistic activity, and that a conviction would represent a landmark setback for the First Amendment. Major media outlets are in agreement. The New York Times, The Guardian, El País, Le Monde, and Der Spiegel have taken the extraordinary step of publishing a joint statement in opposition to the indictment, warning that it sets a dangerous precedent and threatens to undermine America's First Amendment and the freedom of the press. So I love this. This is phenomenal. I'm so happy that this is out there now. I mean, obviously the only disappointing part is, in a world that made sense, you should have like literally every single member of Congress.
It's crazy
every single
that it
member
takes
of the
courage.
Senate. That's right, exactly. Because this is such a duh thing. Because let's not forget exactly what the original issue was with Julian Assange, where he released some documents, some classified documents that he had gotten from Chelsea Manning, and it was called the Collateral Murder video. And what we learned is that the U.S. military, I believe in this particular case, was it Iraq or Afghanistan? It's one of the two. It was in Iraq. Okay. So you had the U.S. government basically murdering civilians and then circling around and doing what's called a double tap and then killing the first responders as well. And it turns out these were like literally journalists and then first responders. And the entire time that they were doing it, they were laughing about it. Now, again, like I understand some things need to be classified, right? Like you don't want the nuclear codes floating around out there. Everybody understands that.
Yeah.
But when you say, hey, we did something wrong with your money and in your name, American taxpayer, and then we're going to try to hide it when we mess up. No, that is not protected. That is not classified. In no world does that make sense.
Right.
And so Chelsea Manning having a conscience and releasing it to Julian Assange, and Julian Assange doing what basically a journalist is supposed to do and running with it, to crack down on that just shows the corruption and the rot within the U.S. deep state, where they think we're above the law, and the biggest crime is not actually committing a crime like murder. The biggest crime is exposing our crimes.
Right.
That's how they view it.
And the only people who have been charged with the crimes that were portrayed in that video, none of them faced any sort of charges. The only people involved in this who have been charged were Chelsea Manning and Julian Assange.
Now, thankfully, Chelsea Manning was pardoned or commuted at least. I don't remember if it was pardoned or commuted by Obama, which is one of the few things you go, hey, good, I'm happy you did that.
And that's what this letter, when we talked to John and Gabriel Shipton here when they were in town, talking about what they were up to, and they gave us actually a preview. I think we actually broke the news that this letter was in the works. They talked about how they didn't really expect any Republicans to sign on to it because the framing of it was drop this Trump-era prosecution, and it was aimed more at pulling progressive support with the idea that they would be in a better position to pressure the Biden administration over it. I will say it's disappointing some of the names that aren't on this list, people like Pramila Jayapal and Ro Khanna, who I think have said, in the past that Assange should be released, that the charges should be dropped. So it is disappointing to see how few names are on here. And it also is insane, some of the reaction they got to listen to this one. This is from a Responsible Statecraft article. resistance hero Alexander Vindman said, "This is absurd. Assange was a tool of the Russian state and broadcast U.S. secrets that endangered Americans," which...
That's just factually wrong.
Correct.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing is, even if he wasn't, but even if he was a tool of the Russian state, was the information accurate or not? Like, ultimately, his motives in any of this are completely irrelevant. The other piece is that, you know, they like to, the reason this became sort of politically fraught for Democrats really is because he was involved in the embarrassing WikiLeaks disclosures of Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. And so he became a bad guy to like the resistance liberals. And so it shows how unprincipled they are too, that, you know, these particular charges have nothing to do with anything that happened in 2016. This is all about those George W. Bush disclosures. And yet a lot of liberal Democrats have flipped their view of Assange and basically don't care that the charges effectively, you know, not only criminalize him, but criminalize journalism, as Obama and Biden in the first administration understood, and they've just sort of abandoned the whole thing.
But I will say, you do have to give, even though we shouldn't live in a world where it takes courage to do what just happened here.
Yeah.
You have to give tremendous credit to Rashida Tlaib, Cori Bush, Greg Cesar, Jamal Bowman, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez because of the dynamic that you just explained.
Yeah.
Because of 2016 and WikiLeaks and the stuff on the DNC made it so that now Julian Assange is officially a pariah, so stay away from him, don't go near him. Now everything he does is tainted. I mean, that's the mindset. That's the pervasive ideology vis-a-vis Julian Assange. And then you had these people said, no, not buying it. Not buying it. And to your other point, I mean, you want to talk about hypocrites. What happened? I thought that, you know, all the Trump-like Republicans or, oh, these are different Republicans. Oh, Trump's really close to pardoning Julian Assange. You watch. We're working on it. He's almost there.
Right.
It was all that talk about it. And I thought that the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the Matt Gaetzes and those people, bro, these are different Republicans. These are anti-establishment Republicans. They've even said some things that are like pro-Julian Assange. Well, where the hell is their stuff here? Oh, it said drop the Trump era case, and that triggered you to not support it. That is a factual statement. It was a Trump era case. Doesn't matter if you agree with that or don't agree with that. Doesn't matter if you like it or don't like it. That's what it was.
Yeah.
So that's factual for them to say that.
Literally factual in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't touch it.
And okay, and how many Republicans signed on to this? Donut. So there is no anti-establishment populist right. That's not a thing. And there's only shreds of a populist left here where, 5 of them standing up and doing the right thing and signing on to this letter.
7 of them, I believe.
7? I got 1, 2, 3. Okay, I don't see the other ones.
So here, I'll tell you the full list of names.
So this is what I referred to at the beginning, that some people jumped on after
I don't think they jumped on. I think they just were like, they signed below that thing.
So
yeah,
cut it off in this. Okay, Rashida Tlaib cut it off.
There were 7 progressive members. It was led by Rashida Tlaib. The other ones were Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and Greg Cesar.
Oh, that's right. Of course, Ilhan Omar was part of it.
Yeah.
How did I forget that? And she's not here in this version I have from Rashida Tlaib's Twitter feed. But
so that was the list of 7.
Yeah, credit to those people. For real, credit to those people. And look, I feel like this is an important point too, because like I'm hard on these people when they mess up.
Yep.
So when they do something good, I want to incentivize that. Not that any of them are listening to me or give a shit what I say, but like I want to incentivize. Like, yes, you did something good. Pat on the back, pat on the head. Would you like to go for ice cream? Like this is good.
Yeah, and you know, the hardest thing to do, especially when you are an elected Democratic official, is to go directly after the sitting president of the United States, who is your same party. So,
and they do pay a price for that, by the way, just so everybody understands.
They do.
It's easy for me and you as an outsider to say, like, we are principled and we would do X. And you know what? I probably would. But at the same time, I probably have a lot less teeth behind the scenes in terms of having sway if I piss off everybody around me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there are trade-offs, real world pragmatic trade-offs. And while, you know, somebody like me with my personality, I'd probably step on a lot of toes. The upside of that is optically it looks like, oh, this guy's a principled crusader. But in terms of behind the scenes and getting stuff done, it probably is harder now that, you know, because Joe Biden's going to look at this and be like, piss off.
Yeah.
Now you did the wrong thing. Now maybe you're going to get kicked off a committee. Now there's going to be consequences as a result.
You're not going to get to come to the White House to influence me on whatever the next bill is.
Correct.
Like, yeah, that's the game they play. You know, AOC had that interview with David Sirota on the Lever podcast, Lever Time, I think it's called, recently. And she was talking about, she gave some specifics about the pressure that's brought to bear on them, which I thought was very revealing. And she said that, you know, Biden or his various administration lackeys would like get on the phone with them and be like, if you're not with us, like, what, you don't trust us, you don't believe us. So they would use all this like emotional manipulation basically to try to
That would be the thing
force
that
consent.
works the least on
I know that would
is
work.
that.
Yeah, but it's very like, I mean, I'm not excusing it whatsoever, but they try to use normal like human interactions and weaponize
Right,
them
yeah.
against you and make you feel like you're betraying like your people basically if you don't do what we want you to do.
See, but they don't understand what AOC doesn't understand. What most of these people don't understand is they have an ace up their sleeve, and they're totally unaware of the ace up their sleeve,
Yeah.
which is you have the bigger like following among the people. Like if you count like
Absolutely.
social media following and stuff like
Joe
that,
Biden
people
has
might poo-poo that and
none.
be like, oh, whatever. Like, no, but that actually matters if you call for direct action, if you say we're going to put bodies in the streets or whatever. And again, I understand this is it's not an easy thing to do. It's like to call up the troops or whatever. It's not an easy thing to do, but at the same time, you have that ace up your sleeve and you never use it. You act like, you know, you have as much power as like some fourth down the line staffer in the White House who nobody knows the name of. And that's
Yeah.
not true. You have much more power than they do.
Yeah.
So if they just grew a pair, it'd be a lot nicer. But look, again, I don't want to beat up on them too much because the fact of the matter is 0 Republicans signed on to this, pathetic losers, and there was 7 Democrats who did sign on to this, and they deserve tremendous credit, and the other Democrats and every Republican deserves tremendous shame.
Yeah. And there needs to be even more pressure applied to potentially shame the Biden administration into doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's not going to happen.
Right. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.